Hi, how's everybody doing today? Today I got a little story to tell you about knives and my dad. So, a few years back, let's say, I want to say 5 years ago, I found a good deal on the Benchmade Griptilians 5 or 6 years ago. And my dad watched my knife videos and my YouTube channel, so I figured, you know what, I'm going to get two of these. I'm going to keep one to open boxes with at work and just for my everyday carry. And I'm going to send one off to him for Father's Day that was coming up. So I got two. I sent him off one. And, it's like made in the USA. He's a big USA guy. Good quality blade. I'm like, just be careful flicking it closed like that, because I had a friend who flicked it closed like that with their fingers over the handle, and then they were instantly bleeding all over the place. So I just wanted to make sure he didn't cut himself on it. So anyway, I didn't hear too much more about it. I heard he was sitting there flipping it open and stuff. But years later, 3.5 years later, 4 years later, once he passed away, had to go clean out his house, and he's 2,000 miles away. So I fly out there, and I walk in, and the knife is sitting on the end table right next to his chair. Still mint condition, but it was sitting right on the end table. That he basically, for the last 6 months, he's been sitting in a chair in the living room, barely getting up at all. And he had this sitting right next to him. There was this, the TV remote, and a couple car magazines. And then right on the floor next to it was the shipping box that I sent it to him in. So he kept everything. But it's nice to know that this I think probably reminded him of me, and the fact that I sent it to him, and that he held it so close. It was sitting there, till the end. So now I have it back, and I got two. Of course, this one's like new. I'm sure he flicked it open and closed a bunch of times, but I had the box and everything. But I want to, after sending it to him, I want to tell you a little more of the story. After sending it to him, he goes, "Oh, I'll have to send you a knife, right?" He's like, "I'll have to find one for you." And he's like, "Oh, they got these ones down at the bazaar, and they're like switchblades, or you can flip them open." And I knew what he was talking about, and I was like, "Oh no, he's gonna send me one of those like $6 pieces of junk that they sell at the bazaar." But he didn't. He didn't. Thank goodness. That's neither here nor there. But more to the story. Let's say this is all just kind of scrambled memories here. Years and years and years ago, when I was like 10 years old, let's say, so like 30 years ago, my dad took me and my sister, to Stinson Beach to go boogie boarding. Right? We get there, we don't know what it's going to be like. We think we're going to go to like a hot beach. This is in California, and the water was like 50 degrees. It was freezing cold. There was only a couple locals there, and they hated that we were there. And apparently it's a big shark attack beach, which we didn't know until we saw the shark sign as we were leaving. But I'm like, I'm going in, I'm swimming. I don't care. Anyway, long story short, when I was digging there in the sand, trying to de-popsicle myself, I found this. I was digging. I'm like, oh, there's something down here. I pull this out. It's packed with sand. This is a Victorinox Swiss Army knife. And it was a lot dirtier than this when I got it. I cleaned this up quite a bit. But, the handle's scratched up. The blades aren't very sharp. It's been packed in the sand, probably a foot down or so, for a long time. But this is a super popular one. It's got the scissors, 2 blades, screwdriver, can opener, corkscrew, that kind of stuff. The awl. or the reamer as they call it. And it was missing the toothpick and the tweezers, which I could still pick up for it. But I think that when I found this, my dad was way more excited than I was. I was like, huh, it's an old crappy knife. And my dad was just thrilled that I found that. Look what he found. He took a picture and everything. Thought it was the coolest thing in the world. But I told him a story because when I was little, I used to go to the hardware store, and I was like, I'd always look at that case where they had all the Swiss Army knives, and you see from the little pocket one to the one that's good for opening letters to like the one before this one, then this one, and they just kept going up, and the biggest one in there was the Swiss Champ, right? And this is like 30 some years ago, I was telling him this. And the Swiss Champ, man, it just had everything, but it was like $65 back then. And I'm talking like 80s, I want to say late 80s, early 80s. Anyway, mid to late 80s, let's say. And I said, oh, that thing was just the ultimate. I used to just drool on that as a kid. But 25 years later, after I sent him this knife, he goes, I'm going to send you a knife. And a package shows up in the mail. And there it is. The Swiss Champ. I feel like, my dad had a really good memory, and almost 30 years later, he remembered that I said that this was the coolest knife from my childhood, and he found one and he sent it to me. So he has tons of tools, main blade, backup blade. We got fish scaler, measuring tape. We got pliers on this thing. Magnifying glass, which is good if you have a splinter. You can see where it's at to get it out. We got screwdriver, Phillips straight head can opener, straight edge bottle opener. We got a corkscrew. This one has a little screwdriver like for eyeglasses on it. A hook. Not quite sure what that's for, but you could carry something on it that has twine around it. Little screwdriver. They got the reamer, of course. Most of them get a reamer. This is like, oh, what would you ever do with that? Well, I've actually used this quite a bit in building RC cars. So the plastic holes, to ream them out a little bit, or the body plastic to get the post holes through it. But anyway, that's my little story. He sent me the Swiss Champ, and I know he watched my videos, and I think he was hoping that I would review it, so I could tell about how my dad got this for me. But fortunately, got busy, and time goes on, and I didn't get it done before he was gone. But anyway, as a present, I always think about from him, and never get rid of it. So permanently in my collection. All right, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take her easy.